Anyone who thinks the church is relevant today is living in a make-believe world. Can you believe that I wrote those words? And not only wrote them down, but put them in my book of lessons learned in ministry. Anyone who thinks the church is relevant today is just living in a make-believe world. Well, I'm going to tell you the setting that came in. But first I want to say this is a short devotion, midweek devotion from the Littleton United Methodist Church. I was born into and raised in a church culture. I probably first attended church when I was 2 days or 2 weeks old. In our particular church, you couldn't join the church as a full member until you were 16. If you were younger than that, you joined as a junior member of the church, but you didn't serve on boards and committees and stuff. I joined as a junior member of the church when I was in grade school, and I became a full member of the church on my 16th birthday and began to take part in the leadership and the life of the church as an adult member at that time. When I was a senior in high school, I became a licensed lay speaker. While I was still in college, I became a conference ministerial candidate. Fresh out of college, I was ordained as a deacon in our denomination, and a few years later as an elder in our denomination. We sort of went through that kind of a progression at the time. And when I was 49, I kind of had a collapse. After over 20 years in ministry, over 25, I kind of had a collapse. And for a period of time, for health reasons, I wasn't in the pulpit, and I wasn't in services for a short period of maybe a few months. It was during this time when I wasn't sitting in church, maybe watching it on TV or something, but not sitting in a congregation setting, that I would go out on a Sunday. I would shop. My wife and I would go to a restaurant or something like that. I would look around me and I would see that, much to my surprise, the world didn't stop on Sunday morning. It barely slowed down on Sunday morning. It didn't even look like the restaurants had any kind of gap in them on Sunday morning because people were in church. You probably didn't even notice, I didn't notice people were in church until 12 o'clock came around at noon, and then the church people came out to the restaurants I was in. But it was during that time when I looked at the culture around us, everything going on like normal, and I thought to myself, the church has become irrelevant. I think I probably should be cleaning up some of my mess with church bulletins and stuff, putting away some of my papers. A little bit messy today. Well, I share this with you today because I don't think I'm the only one that's had that feeling before. And we live in a bit of a scary world right now. As far as being a Christian is concerned, a scary world. It seems like the church is losing a lot of influence. So I want to speak to that a little bit. And I want to say that's nothing new. It has happened. There are times when the church has been growing, and there are times the church has been waning. And my mind goes back today. It's become one of my favorite Christmas songs. And I know this is the middle of the summer, but But way back in 1863, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow wrote the words, "I heard the bells on Christmas Day." It's become a favorite Christmas standard for many people. In 1861, 2 years before he wrote this, his wife was killed in an accidental fire. The spring that he wrote this song, in March of 1863, his oldest son disobeyed his wishes and joined the Union Army and went into the Civil War. He didn't last very long. He came in March, and in November he was severely wounded. He didn't die, but had finished his military career, and his recovery was very long and drawn out. A month after he was wounded, on Christmas Day, 1863, Henry Wadsworth Longfellow wrote the words, "I heard the bells on Christmas Day, their old familiar carol play, and wild and sweet the words repeat, of peace on earth, goodwill to men." Now, I'm not going to read all the verses because I know this is a short devotion and I can't read, dozens and dozens of verses. But they target the South, or they target the Civil War and his wishes for peace. And in in verse 3 here, he writes, "And in despair I bowed my head. There is no peace on earth, I said, for a hate is strong and mocks the song of peace on earth, goodwill to men." Then pealed the bells more loud and deep, "God is not dead, nor doth he sleep. The wrong shall fail, the right prevail, with peace on earth, goodwill to men." Till ringing, singing on its way, the world revolved from night to day, a voice, a chime, a chant sublime of peace on earth, goodwill to men. There have been many times in history it seemed the waters seemed unnavigable. When I first saw that song, I was a teenager, and Vietnam was in full bloom. The world seemed to be falling apart. There were race riots. There was the protest, the counter protest, all of the things that were happening during that era. And as a teenager, I was just confused at the time. And one Christmas, I heard the words to that song, and I thought, yeah, God is God. Christianity wasn't very old when it began to pay a price. The Christians began to pay a price for their faith. Almost immediately in the book of Acts, we have them preaching and teaching and healing and being arrested for it. And so in chapter 5 of the book of Acts, we have Peter and the other apostles having to stand up for their faith in front of the legal authorities of the time. And it says in verse 33 that the authorities were furious and wanted to put them to death. But a Pharisee named Gamaliel, a teacher of the law, who was honored by all the people, stood up in the Sanhedrin, and he ordered that the men be put outside for just a little while. And then he addressed the Sanhedrin. In the present case, I advise you, leave these men alone. Let them go. For if their purpose or activity is of human origin, it will fail. But if it is from God, you will not be able to stop these men. You will only find yourselves fighting against God. The church is not of human origin. The church was instituted by Christ. When everything around us, the church, by the way, is in no danger. The church is not irrelevant. It's the most relevant thing that you will ever come in contact with in your life. Now, it's possible that the church is falling out of vogue. It's possible the church is being ignored. It's possible that we are going through winds of change and that the church will not have the influence in our culture that it once had. But when everything around us has crumbled to dust, when all of the nations on earth are no more, when this building that I am recording in is no longer a memory, the church still will be. I hope something that we have shared today in our devotion time has been encouraging to you. Hope you have a marvelous week. Now, we've been running these devotions for a few weeks now, and people have begun to sign on to them. Some people have subscribed to our YouTube channel. Some people go to our Facebook page and are now part of that. We just invite you to be a part of that. But many of you have been giving me some advice, and I've been listening to it. I've been trying to make them a little bit better and tweak them a little bit each time. So if you have advice for improvement, let me know that too. May God bless you this week.